Hello, welcome back. We have a very difficult question now, and it is this one. All right, write a program that asks 3 questions. The user should get 2 chances to answer each question and feedback. If they're correct, we congratulate them. If not, we tell them they're wrong. But on top of that, we have to give a score. So if they get it correct first time, they get 3 marks, and 1 mark if it's a second guess. And then the output will be only their score, as well as whether they got each question wrong or right. And there's 3 questions each. Now, I'm going to use a parallel array setup. In other words, 2 arrays that are parallel. One called ARR quests, which I'll call it that. And inside I've got some random questions. Okay, they're simple ones. Okay, no big deal there. You can make up any question you want. And the corresponding array of answers, called ARAns, is going to be the answers for the questions, the correct answers. Now, it's no coincidence that the questions that I've asked are returning numbers as answers, so I'm making this an array of integers actually, whereas that array AR questions is an array of strings, but that's fine, we can deal with that. Then of course we have to display a score. Now I've put score equal to 0, we'll explain later on why, but the one thing we have to worry about is how we're going to start. We've got to start with a loop, because we know we're going to repeat things. Now we're going to repeat things 3 times here. Whenever we're dealing with an array, we normally use a loop. In this instance, we know exactly how many boxes there are in the array. It's 3. So we use our for loop because we know exactly how many things are in the array and how many times we're going to ask a question, 0, 1, and 2. So we use a for loop for x in range 0 to actually 2. 0, 1, 2. I know it says 0, 3, but it's actually going from 0 to 3 minus 1, which is 2. So box number 0 is that one in AR questions. Box number 0 in AR answer is that one. Right, so in each array we actually got to go through. We've got to basically ask a question and see if it's equal to the answer. Now, this is the line where we ask a question. But remember that we have to ask the question until we get it right, but we only have 2 chances. We also, if they get it right the first time, we want to stop. Now, we don't know how many times the user is going to take to answer get the correct answer. It could be 1, it could be 2. They've only got 2 choices. So I'm using a while loop here because I don't know. Person might take 1 attempt to and get it right the first time. I don't know how many times the user will take to get it right. So I'm going to use a while loop with a counter and a Boolean variable, like I used in the previous activity where you set, and I'm calling this one correct. So we're setting correct equal to false, and we set our count equal to 1. Why do we have to do that? Because in this statement here, while correct equals false and count is less than or equal to 2, we want to do things. And we can't have these statements here unless we've set them to something beforehand, which is over here. So now take note, this is quite scary because I've got a for loop because I'm going through each box of the array, but inside the for loop I have another loop, a while loop. So it doesn't matter because for each box of the array, the first question for instance, always check if it works for the first index or box of the array, then it'll work for all the other boxes. So we're going to check the first question. Set our correct Boolean variable to false and our count equal to 1 because it's now going to be the first time they're going to try and answer it. So while that is false and the count equals less than or equal to 2, so the 2 conditions work, the processor will read that and go over there and say, okay, these are both true. That adds stipulates both have to be true, remember. So while those two are true, okay, we're going to get our answer from the user. Put it in a variable called whatever you want. I'm calling it answer. And I'm basically just going to take the whole question from ARQuest, box number X. Now, where's the X come from? X is the for loop counter that's going to go from 0, 1, 2 to each box of the arrays. So X is going from 0 to 2. So we're busy with box number 0, the first box. And we're putting that in an input statement, which is in the form of a question. As you can see, I've typed in the questions as a form of a question, so that will be displayed in an input statement. Why am I converting it to an int? Because the user is going to type in a number, and my array of answers are in the format of integers. So whatever the user types in there from the input statement has to be converted to an integer and stored in the variable answer. So I hope you got that right. So here we're displaying the question, converting whatever the user types in to an integer, stored in answer, and if that answer is equal to the corresponding array of answers, in this case 2024, and take note of the first two equal signs. I didn't have to put brackets here, by the way. I don't know why I did. So if answer is equal to the corresponding X box of AR answers, so we know we're in box number 0, so it'll be the first one, then we say correct equals true. So if correct equals true, don't we also want to tell them that they got it right? Well, we'll find out just down over here. We will do that later down the line. You know, message, well, congratulations. So we said correct equals true. The process is going to go to the next line and the next line and the next line and the next line before it gets right to the end of the while loop, which will be here. Okay, that's the end of this while loop here. All of that is the end of the while loop. We need to make sure that we know that everything inside here is inside the while loop, because these are indented there and there and there. This is not in the while loop. You need to know that our indentation is correct there. Anyway, back to where we were. So we've got our answer that the user types in the answer. The question gets displayed from there, and and whatever the user types in gets converted to integer. If that is equal to, in this case, 2024, then we'll say correct equals true. Now, was it the first time they tried it? Yep. And then the scores added 3. And this is else if. If count equals 2, then the score is score plus 1. Why would I put an if there? Because they get it right, okay, and if they've got the first chance, then we're adding 3 to their score, and if they get only the second chance, then we add 1 to the score. Where does score come in? Score's right at the top here. I set score to 0 right before everything else happened, because score is for the whole set of questions, not just for one question. So we can accumulate all the scores for every single question that will be asked, 3 of them to be in fact. Right, now obviously this code has been written in Notepad, and I know it's correct because I tested the thing. Obviously there was a spelling mistake there, but yeah, anyway, don't worry about that. I've just made it in Notepad so that you can see what is happening with the code. Right, where are we? So if the answer is correct, we set our Boolean flag to true, and we do we accumulate the numbers to the scores. If count equals 1, if count equals 2, what is count? Count started at 1, okay? But if the answer is not correct, this is if the answer is correct, else, if the answer is not correct, then we add 1 to our count, and now it is 2. So if the count is not correct, count is still less than or equal to 2. Actually, it's equal to 2, so we can move on, and they have a second chance to get the correct answer. If they get it right the next time, second chance, then if count equals 2, then we only add 1 to the score. If they get it wrong, well, count will be count plus 1, but it'll now be 3, and therefore the loop will end. Obviously, if they get it right, then this while loop will stop, because correct will be set to true. But of course, we have to set our score as well. So if they get the answer right, we set our correct to true and we calculate the score. Otherwise, we just count again, and if it goes up to greater than 2, then this loop will stop and we'll go all the way over here. And if it's still false, we're going to say twice you're incorrect, the answer is, else we'll say good for you, you're correct for question number x plus 1. Now I've put in there x plus 1. I don't know if you can see that. Let me just, there we go, x plus 1. Why question number x plus 1? Well, remember right at the beginning here, x is the number of questions. It's going from 0 to 2. So there are 3 questions. 0 plus 1 is 1. So question number 1, question number 2, question number 3. Because we know that arrays are numbered from 0. The first item is 0, and then the second item is 1, and the third item is 2, and so on. Now this works 100% correct. It'll go for every single box index of the array, and ask the question, check if it's equal to the corresponding index of the answer array, and if it is, then the score will be calculated depending on how many times that the user was able to get it right. And if they didn't get it right, well, the score is not incremented at all. And here we go over here, your score is equal to score. This is right outside the for loop and outside the while loop as well. These 2 lines over here, these lines are inside the for loop, but not inside this while loop. So we have a loop within a loop, a while loop inside a for loop. And if you didn't quite get it the first time, just run through the video again, and yeah, and good luck and have fun.